I would say if you haven't started by now, you've missed a massive amount of the opportunity that existed just a few years ago on Amazon. If we were to look at an adoption curve, we could see that the innovators at just about 2.5% of the total end users would be the people that joined in 2006, 2007 when Amazon FBA first launched. And, there wasn't this time between, 2007, 2013, 2014, where you could pretty much list something on Amazon.com and have nearly everyone that ever searched for that product find your product and see that you were one of the only options to purchase, right? So you would get a massive amount of sales. You do very little differentiation, very little innovation. Ironically, they're called the innovators, and get a huge amount of returns in revenue. Now, the early adopters are the people that saw that there was an opportunity here, right? The risk takers, they saw, hey, this is a platform. I think that I can do this. There's a very small amount of proof of concept from the innovators that this is working. I'm going to try this out. So now we're in what I would call that 2013 to 2017, 18 era, where I kind of joined at the end of that curve, right? I was probably at the very last second before the early majority. 2017, 2018, I would say marks the end of that. Somewhere near 2012, 2013 marks the beginning of that. And now those are the people that, again, have an incredibly easy time getting started in massive returns and are essentially, you could see what's happening here, right? I mean, this is the adoption curve, but that's similar to the results they probably would have seen in their sales, right? Their massive amount of sales coming in because there's just not a lot of people doing it. If we were to look at this, we're still only at about 16% of the total users that are going to ultimately end up making this change are in the program, but it's a massive amount of customers, so it's working well. Early majority. Now I think we were in that 2017, 2016 phase right up and through to probably 2020, realistically. These people also get in easily. It's harder than the early adopters or the innovators had it, right? They were able to make that change very quickly and reap a lot of the rewards. Very little ignorance and very little arrogance from innovators and early adopters, really willing to experiment, willing to try. Early majority, essentially find mentors that were early adopters and profit well. In this case, we're talking about Amazon FBA, right? So courses were coming out from early adopters. Early majority found all of those courses. Were not the people who were like, oh, I'm going to make sure that 5 years from now it's still working. There was like, hey, these people are making this work. I'm going to make it too. Again, like I said, I probably joined right around the early adopter, early majority split phase. And then we're, what I think, already through early majority now. If not, we're at the very end of it. I think if you haven't started selling on Amazon yet, and you've been watching YouTube videos for what's probably 6, 7, 8 years now, has been a proven model, we're moving towards the late majority, right? So a lot of the people in the late majority didn't join because A, they were either suspicious that it was even legit, or B, they already thought they had something that was working better. So maybe they were doing some kind of side hustle that, I don't need to change. I don't need to adopt. I don't need to go sell on Amazon. I don't need to be an FBA seller. It's not for me, right? So they're going to have a very hard time making that transition. And really quickly, could you just do me a favor and smash the like button? Or if you tend to be a little bit gentler of a person, you could kindly tap the like button. But it really helps get this video out to other people, helps the YouTube algorithm, and it helps my small channel. So thank you so much. Now, if we were to look at something like this, which is the number of units sold by third-party sellers on Amazon platform as of the end of 2021. Now, the irony is here in this 2007 through, like we were talking about, kind of that 2013 range, it looks like we have a very large number of people coming in. There's not that many people coming in. It's a small majority of people that come in compared to the millions of sellers that there are now, but they're making a majority of the sales on that platform and it's working well. As we come over, we can see kind of what's happening, and this is mimicking perfectly what we saw here, right? So we have the innovators come in, massive jump, we're coming up through early majority, and now we're looking like we're somewhere at the top of that adoption curve. We're going to be heading down now. It's going to be harder and harder to convince people that it is a good idea to be using this platform. It's going to be far more competitive. There's a lot of people that know how to do it very well that have already got their position selling on Amazon, and now we're working through things like competitive pricing. We're working through things like hijacking, all these problems that start to arise with a massive amount of users on the platform competing for the same customers. Now, the good news is that in the same way that there is an adoption curve for selling on Amazon, there's also a change adoption curve for how you're changing and modifying the way that you operate your e-commerce business online. And that you can still be an innovator. You can still be an early adopter. You can get in early, make those changes. I've already seen the small amount of proof of concept that I've needed to see. I've seen the change happening. I was being told about this 3 years ago, like this, let's say we're in 2010, it was starting 2007. That's the equivalent, but there's a massive amount of growth that's about to happen, and there's huge opportunities still left on the table. It's just not doing that, right? It's not taking a product from Alibaba.com and selling it for 3 times the price that you ordered it for, 4 or 5 times the price that you ordered it for. There's videos explaining by myself why that's not effective anymore, but let me show you what is. Let's look at the change adoption curve and place you as an innovator or an early adopter on that curve and look at what the possibilities could be. Now, what if instead of this being Amazon FBA, this was audience/brand building? There are brands that have existed forever. Brand building, creating a new brand, starting a brand is not new. What is new is this idea of leveraging social media, leveraging different audiences with niche interests, building a brand specifically for them with the intent to grow it for 24, 36 months, then get it acquired by much larger companies that are looking to do that exact thing. Purchase small companies that are nimble, that are quick to grow, and take it over once they have that audience size and they have that the sales to back up what they've been doing. So let's say, that's been around for a little while. People have been doing this for several years already within e-commerce. They've been doing this for long before e-commerce ever existed with physical, storefronts and different digital models and stuff. But let's say that right now you're going to go, okay, you know what? I'm done with the whole Alibaba private label thing. I'm done just selling other people's products. I'm done with very little innovation within my own products. I'm going to find a very specific audience. I'm going to craft a brand for them based out of their needs, and then I'm going to grow that brand. There are 2 main components that I'm going to be discussing today to differentiate those 2 models, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can look at this in a new way. First key component of doing this the right way, doing this the new way, the way that you're not late to, the way that you're relatively on time for, is going to be picking a niche audience that's enthusiastic about a niche hobby, or they have a certain interest that connects that group of people. Okay, so we don't want to start from a product and work backwards to figure out who might buy this and just position it in front of people that are looking for it. We actually want to start with a group of people where we know there's 100,000, 150,000 people or 1 million people that have a very specific interest and they're connected through that interest. The way I like to think about this is you would be excited to talk to somebody else about this thing. If you're at a party and you have a niche interest in fermenting things, right? You recently started making your own pickles or making your own kimchi or your sauerkraut or something, and someone else, you overheard them going, yeah, so I just started, fermenting my own, vegetables and I'm really interested in it. You would go, huh, that would break any, awkwardness that there was of approaching that person for a normal conversation. Just go, oh, I can immediately connect to that thing. That's the same thing that's going to unite them to your brand, right? So when you're a brand that's all about fermenting, all about interesting ways of, coming up with products for doing that, that specific hobby, or coming out with tutorials, etc., content in any which way, they're going to connect to that. They're going to want to follow along your journey and eventually buy your products. Okay. The first thing is pick your audience, pick that group of people that has a very specific interest, and then start making content for them to connect with those people. We can think of that as posting on Instagram, posting on Facebook, making YouTube videos for those people, or just simply, if you really are just getting started, studying those things. What kind of content are they looking at? That's where you're going to find those users and how you're going to start building that audience. The next key component here is barriers to entry. Okay, so you don't want to just, again, go find a product that already exists, slap your logo on it and sell it. What you want to do instead is create a medium level of a barrier to entry. Now, what I mean by this is that you want to make it difficult for new companies to enter in your specific market doing what you're doing. You kind of want to lock down a specific skill or a specific thing that your brand and your company is known for doing, do it well, make it slightly difficult for other people to come in and just do the same thing. So there's zero barriers to entry with Amazon FBA private label. You can go order the same exact product as someone else, customize your packaging in a very similar way, and just sell that product on the same exact platform to the same exact customers. What we're talking about here is maybe you patent your unique product that you come up with a solution to a problem for, or you are working out, like for instance in this situation, licensing requirements with certain characters from movies or something to put on your product. There might be technological difficulties and the kind of code that you're writing out and the software that you're creating from scratch that you have intellectual property for, or even with just a physical product like we were starting with, keeping it relatively simple, source it from an area where you have a non-compete contract with that supplier. They're manufacturing it for you and you only. It was very difficult to customize that product. Maybe it cost a few $1,000s just to make that first sample, but then you have no competition, right? Or virtually no competition. They certainly won't have your exact product, right? So if you go out of your way to solve a problem that's difficult to solve, you're going to be able to reap the rewards from that, not just instantly have someone come in and sell it for slightly lower cost. So to come full circle on this, instead of hopping into the late majority of a business model that's getting fairly competitive, start thinking about becoming an early adopter of the people that are making the changes that we're selling this way, like myself was selling this way. Now we're turning this into, instead of just an adoption curve of Amazon FBA, a change adoption curve of Amazon FBA to brand focused, to audience focused selling, and making the changes that are necessary. So finding an audience, working with those people to build that brand up to something that means something more than just a transactional purchase, because they relate to you and the things that you're making products about. And then finally, create a barrier to entry, whether that's the difficulty in making the exact product because you made a fully custom product for a unique problem that those customers are having, or you started some kind of intellectual property with a lawyer surrounding the product that you created, whatever that ends up being, some way of making it difficult for other competitors to compete directly with what you're doing. So that's going to do it for today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe down below if you found this helpful at all, and let me know in the comments down below if you are going to be becoming an innovator or becoming an early adopter and making the change to brand focused selling. As always, I appreciate every single one of you coming and watching my videos. Without you watching these videos, there would be no point in making them. So I applaud you and I thank you for being here. That being said, I'll see you in the next video. Later.